I originally had planned to review a different Touhou fan game first, but I came across this newly released game on Steam that I got absolutely hooked on playing. It caught my attention because you get to play as Yuuka, and I'm always down for playing as different Touhous for once, since Reimu and Marissa usually steal the show in most of these fan games. Alright, let's get the basics out of the way. The game's in 4:3 resolution, so you're going to see some black bars on the side, unless of course you're still living in the 90s and have a nice big CRT. There isn't many game options, but one of them lets you change the kind of input prompts you see. I'm using a PS4 controller on my PC, so I picked that. You get 3 difficulties to choose from, and my advice will go counter to what the game tells you here. If you're not used to platformers or the usual pain of retrying Touhou games, you might want to try to play on Picnic your first time. Otherwise, proceed with Adventure. I'll talk more on that later. Just don't pick Expert your first time through. After you start your game, the developer will tell you that this is machine translated, but you don't need to worry. Everything is pretty understandable, and the lines that aren't, well, they just add to the charm of the game, so expect a few laughs here and there. The story starts off with Yuuka having a good time until she notices someone has been messing with her flowers, and if there's one thing you never do, it's mess with Yuuka's sunflowers. So we start on our journey to hunt down the culprit in the usual Gensokyo fashion. But we won't be alone in our journey because we'll be bringing a willing helper to our party. We just gotta ask Kutaka nicely to join. You'll come across tons of NPCs sitting about that can give you advice, talk about the environment, or really just say something silly most of the time. You'll learn all your basics right here in the first level. You can give enemies the boot, smack them with the parasol, grab them and throw them, and of course, float around. You'll get plenty of time to experiment with different combos. Honestly, I feel kind of bad for most of the mobs. They just look like they're having a good time. But Yuuka will put a stop to that. Goblin listening to loud music? Not anymore. Pig reading the newspaper? Not on my watch. An eggplant duck? That's just not natural. Along the way, you'll see various fairies and friends floating about trying to help you out by bringing you delicious food too. If you've played any of the Super Nintendo games, you can already see where the inspirations are coming from. This game is a combination of Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country, and the Kirby games. But you may recognize elements from other games as you play too though. Really, this whole game is one big nostalgia trip, and you'll get the sense of deja vu just like you've been here before, but now you're a Touhou. Each level can be pretty long, but one of the changes that was made in the Steam version over one of the older versions that they had on Booth is that this one has multiple checkpoints per level, usually about 3. You have 2 that are just the coins that you collect for your checkpoint, but the main checkpoint you'll get halfway through the level. You'll get to go down the pipe and visit Kutaka's abode. She's just chilling, reading a book, and apparently drying her underwear over the table for everyone to see. The main reason for being here, of course, is to take a break and recover health. How you choose to spend that break is up to you. You can have tea, cake, or have keiki and tea together. Yuuka looks so comfy that I don't even want to disturb her, but we got an incident to resolve. Each time you come here, you can talk to Kutaka, and she has something new to say on every level. Sometimes it's about your quest, or maybe it's something she's reading in her book. And one time, she also asked to see my abs. She also told me after I'd eaten about half a dozen cakes that she baked them using her own eggs. Whatever, I guess it's time to head out. The first world is pretty easy and you get to spend most of it goofing around and having fun. There's a huge variety in the levels and the game mechanics you'll encounter, and since it's Gensokyo, you know there's going to be plenty of boss battles. I won't spoil too much, but each boss has different mechanics on how you need to fight them. One moment you're smacking them with objects. The other, you're in a car with a mounted minigun. Take that, Nitori. World 2 is where the game starts to offer a little bit of resistance. You'll need some of those platforming skills, but one of the nice things is the movement in this game is so good. You can jump, float, attack out of floating and refloat one more time, or mix in a dash instead. You'll have several tools for getting around, and if you master them, you can even save yourself from some of your own mistakes. This game does have a live system, but it only matters for checkpoints. If you run out of lives, you don't lose your map progress, and there are a couple levels you can grind lives on if you really need to. World 3 is where I decided to try switching from adventure to baby picnic mode. Of course, this means I had to start a new save, but this is where the difficulty really begins. If you play the first 2 worlds, the story could just be about Yuuka being comfy and jumping around. But once you're in World 3, you're gonna need to use everything you've learned up to this point just to not die. On adventure mode, you could take about 3 hits before dying, but now most enemies do enough damage to kill you in 2. And that's if you don't dunk yourself in the lava. As much as I praise this game, which it very much deserves, Yuuka's hitbox is huge. I mean, look how much strain that button is under to hold that shirt together. Even in World 2, I was starting to notice how much real estate you're carrying during certain segments. Hitboxes aside, I think a lot of the difficulty you will face is fair though. It can sometimes be trial and error, but you'll learn the patterns, perfect your movements, and it becomes so satisfying to clear an area you were having trouble with. All the bosses were really fun because you could learn their patterns and execute better in your next attempts, along with them having unique mechanics to fight them. For me, the hardest was Moko. Maybe because I've never played Lethal League, or maybe it's because Yuuka has such a slow windup, I waste a bunch of lives misjudging when to swing. The best part about this game is all the little attention to detail, like those floating Touhous that bring you food earlier. Well, when you're underwater and you're in a swimsuit, they're wearing a swimsuit too. When you finish the car level, you appear hopping it off in the next. There was no need to ever add a lot of these extras, but you just find so much throughout the game, it just really adds to the atmosphere. I'm trying to preserve a lot of the surprises in the game in case you want to play it yourself, so if you want to avoid spoilers about the final boss, then skip to this time right here. Are they gone? It turns out the goblins came from, how do you pronounce it? Hakyokuro?
Hakugyokuro.
Whatever, it's Yuuko's crib, you know what. Of course, Yomu is nowhere to be found, so we're gonna ascend our way up to give Yuuka the business. This level is probably the longest in the game, and they throw everything they can to stop you. But Yuuka is resilient and won't stop until she gets answers for damaging her sunflowers. We make it to Yuuka and tell her what's happened. Turns out she was just being lazy, letting them roam wherever, and didn't see why it's her problem. Well, we'll give her a lesson she'll soon remember. She's powerful, but we got a secret weapon, and that's throwing food at her to defeat her. After a couple attempts, I finally survived all her phases to move on. But wait, it's black everywhere. Maybe I'm just supposed to keep walking. By God, it's Yuuka from the top rope. She's not kidding around this time, and if you let her grab you, she'll throw you around. I really wasn't expecting this, but this is an awesome throwback to Kirby. But don't worry, our trusty parasol gives us a leg up in this booba battle, allowing me to evade most of her hugs. Even the crowd is on my side and throws me some food for my troubles. I show her who the mightiest is in the end. She's of course very understanding and apologetic after the battle and admits she was being lazy while Yomu was training. We also order Kutaka around one more time and head on home to tend to our flowers. Even after you've beaten the game, there's still more harder content to explore. When you're going through the levels, you'll sometimes see a giant gear you can grab. Turns out, Nitori needs this for her machine to reach the extra levels, so if you haven't been grabbing them before, you can go back and find them. Just be warned that these extra levels are the hardest levels in the game, and you're going to be dying a lot. But if you've made it this far, and maybe you want to try this on Adventure Expert next, you should give the X levels a try. It's rare for me to find a game I enjoy so much that I just can't put down, but this was one of them. The game does get hard. You may find some frustrating segments, but you usually get a good idea on what you did wrong, and the satisfaction of improving and overcoming the challenge is a good one. There would be several times that I would make it through most of a segment, end up dying, and feel bad that I had to go back and redo it, but I'd learned little ways I can do it better, and ways I could save myself. And if you're playing on Picnic, well, you have a lot more ways to save yourself too. Of course, not gonna save you from the death of falling, but as a platformer, I just really enjoyed it so much. While I was editing this video, I learned that the developer was afraid of putting the game on Steam because of Steam's review system showing their failures and that people might not like this game or that it might be too difficult. But this is some of the most fun I've had playing a Touhou fan game. It seems like a lot of people agree with me. So if this video interested you in the game at all, consider buying or wishlisting it. There's still a lot of content I didn't show. I just wanted to keep a very minimalist approach to my review. I think you'll enjoy it. As for me, I got more Touhou fan games to get to, and this being my first ever review video, I got a lot more to learn. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.